Welcome to the Generation Fit podcast. I'm Coach Chris with Coach Benji. Today we talked about how to build the most aesthetic physique, focusing on certain muscle groups and which exercises to do to build them. We also talked about a bunch of random stuff in which you guys will love to hear. No, we did try the Oreo tiramisu, the add-in for the Ninja Creami. It is pretty good, but it definitely, I guess, our taste buds. I think we just know it's so artificial that it was just obviously a little bit off. Obviously, it tastes good. Like, don't get me wrong, I definitely have like 2 or 3 of them, but I will not have a whole sleeve like the original Oreo sleeve. So, like the original Oreos.
What was the Oreo tiramisu? What was it?
It's basically the filling is tiramisu flavored.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's like a little bit of like a coffee espresso hint in there, definitely creamier. And we were trying to make it not the ice cream more tiramisu based, but just like different mix-ins.
Yeah.
That we obviously only put like 3 or 4 in the entire Creami. So it's really not many calories. It's only 140 calories extra.
Gotcha.
You know, it's not much. So
what were you doing before though? Like you were just for Oreo shakes or for Oreo ice cream?
like a McFlurry kind of thing. We use the actual Oreo. We're just messing around with different types of add-ins at this point.
Gotcha. Yeah, I used what is that instant pudding mix thing called?
It's literally called instant.
Oh, it's
literally called instant pudding mix. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the instant pudding mix was like the Oreo instant pudding mix, and like it's the least healthy ingredient I have in there, other than like the actual Oreos. But between 2 Oreos split between Allie and I, and the instant pudding mix, like that's almost no like it's just such a small amount. Like if you read the label, it's scary because it's like, okay, this stuff probably is not the best, but it's such a small amount relative to everything else that's in it that I have. You know what I mean? Like obviously good quality milk, and then protein powder. I think I put vanilla protein powder in there, and I have Oreo and then an instant pudding mix, and that's essentially it.
Yeah, exactly. So we've been trying different ones, and so far I think our favorite. I would speak for myself right now. At least my favorite out of all of them is gotta be cookies and cream / Oreo McFlurry, because it is basically Oreo. And then the other one is gotta be strawberry.
Yeah, I haven't had strawberry yet. I've only had Oreos, orange and cream. Actually, it was like an accident. Like we were like, what do we do with this? We had like extra just plain, and we just put a little orange juice in as an add-in, and it tasted amazing. It wasn't like a full ice cream texture, but it was awesome. And then what's the other one? I guess what flavors? What are the flavors that are normal with Ninja Creamies that you've been having?
Vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, and then we do a mango sorbet. Those are like the big 3 bases.
Oh, mint is the other one we did, but I messed up the mint a little bit because I basically made it taste like toothpaste, like mint toothpaste.
Yeah.
So it was like, I think it was because I got pure mint extract, and I thought, like, I was trying to go on Reddit and see like what people were saying, and pure mint extract was not the answer. Some people do spearmint. I think pure spearmint is not the answer either. So everyone was saying get creme de mint, which is like it's like some sort of alcoholic based thing, but it's not it's not like you just have like a little bit and you're like slammed. It's not like you taste you're drinking alcohol, but it's very like the taste that's probably most simulated by an actual mint chocolate chip ice cream at the store. So like I'm gonna try that and see how that goes, and then if not, I'm gonna try that mixed with some mint and see how that tastes. And apparently, according to the world of Reddit, that is the best for mint chocolate chip ice cream.
I've watched the Creami. I've watched some guys on YouTube saying stuff like for the chocolate, especially for the chocolate chip. It's like you want it a certain way, so they like melt the chocolate chips. They put a little bit of oil in there, or coconut oil, or a little bit of butter. So it softens it, makes it more silky, and as it hardens, so it makes it easier for the mint chocolate chips to kind of like go and flow together. And that's what they would put the dash of mint in the chocolate chips themselves. So
I see what you're saying. That's cool.
Yeah, so it's a possibility. I have yet to make mint chocolate chip. Also for the fact of, I just don't want it tasting like toothpaste, and also
I've screwed that up.
Yeah, I just don't know the ratio between putting enough mint and sweetener together to make it so it's not.
That too, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because every recipe you find on the internet is going to be quite high. A lot of them will be like you need about 8 grams of a sweetener substitute, and I don't know if you guys have seen 8 grams before, but it is a lot. And like in a bowl, even in a bowl,
it's a good amount.
If you do a measuring cup, it's like probably.
How many grams do you do now? Like 3 to 5?
I don't use it anymore.
Oh, you don't use it anymore at all?
No, not at all. I think the protein powder, I use the Legion Athletics whey in my Ninja Creami, and it tastes the taste already has a lot of enough sweetener in there. My family barely does eat sugar isolated as it is, so all of us can taste the amount of sweetness in something already. So like we don't have that big of like a massive sweet tooth where we need so much at one time. I think our dopamine receptors are so low now.
Yeah.
So when we have it, it's just a big, like, this is the sweetest thing that we have all
Pretty
combined.
much, yeah.
So we don't need as much, but I think that one is like, you definitely need to have a good amount of sweetener in
Yeah.
there to match the mint, because it's such a
so.
powerful tool.
I think so. I also think let's tell our viewers a little bit about the Ninja Creami if they haven't heard about it, because if you haven't, you're living under a freaking rock. But let's tell them about it just because, well, I think you were the one that got it first, and we tried it, and I was like, this is the most amazing thing. But like, how you got it from, it's your brother's, right?
Oh yeah. So my brother and my girlfriend have been chatting about it for about 3 or 4 months, and they were bickering about who should get it, who should buy it. And it was funny because I guess none of us were like trying to make the full jump. We're always like halfway on the fence, like Humpty Dumpty.
And tell them what the Ninja Creami is actually too, in case they are living under
Yeah,
a
yeah.
rock.
So how this came to fruition with Ninja Creami. Ninja Creami itself is an ice cream maker at its forefront,
Yeah.
and it also can make sorbets and other frozen treats like margaritas too.
Like a milkshake maker for ice cream.
Yeah, basically, and honestly, it's really not the fanciest thing in the world in terms of its concept. It's just itself a machine, and then what looks like the base of a food processor, and you just gotta fill up the container, put it in, and then hit a certain button that you want, so you can make sorbets, margaritas, frozen shakes, whatever you want to be. We just use it for ice cream, but the reason why we ended up getting it as a whole was because I was in, and still currently in, a dieting phase, so I'm trying to like lose a certain amount of weight, and we were thinking, okay, well, we don't want to eat so bland, because I can eat bland, but not my girlfriend. So we were like, okay, what's the best way to do it? And we were finding out recipes on ice cream. And think of it this way: a whole pint of ice cream now that we make is no more than 300 calories. That's the high end. 300 calories.
And you split that between you and Alyssa.
I split that between the whole family. When we make it now, we split it between the whole family, and we do.
It's crazy though.
So think about it this way: like, that's approximately, because I do all the scooping out too. So scooping out wise, that's about 2 scoops per person for 5 people. So 10 scoops of ice cream for 300 calories, and that's
Wait, what's the math on that? 300 and divided by 10, right? So it's 30 calories per scoop.
Per scoop.
That's crazy.
Scoop.
Like, it's not like a tiny scoop. They're probably thinking like, oh, their scoops must be so tiny. No, it's like a normal scoop. Like, this is what's crazy about it. When I tried it, Chris, the first one he ever made, he was like, oh, you should, you could have half or whatever. I think it ended up being like 150, 170 calories for half with an Oreo thrown in there. And it was somewhere around 25, 30 grams of protein. Yeah. And it was filling. Like, it wasn't like, oh, like it's not filling at all, so you shouldn't even deal with that. Like, I know there's a lot of trendy food items or replacements like that, but no, like, this was, if you had the 300 calories of it for like 50 grams of protein, you probably wouldn't even be able to eat more. So like, hypothetically, if you only ate ice cream on the Ninja Creami, you would like lose too much weight off of eating ice cream all day long, because you were getting your protein in and you were getting filling calories in that tasted awesome. Like, it is a hack. I wouldn't recommend doing that every meal of the day, but it was crazy when I experienced that, and that's when I was like, okay, I'm buying this.
Yeah, it's amazing. Basically, now my family itself, they do like treats prior to them losing weight when I was away from them for a couple of years, and they were always eating ice cream or having one beer with dinner or whatnot, And this also kind of helped our whole family nutrition too, because my dad has been eating ice cream almost every night for the last 30 years. Basically every year that I've known him consciously, that he's basically had ice cream in the freezer. So this has been a good transition into finding things that taste very similar to our favorite ice creams. Yes, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be Haagen-Dazs, which is my favorite. And the whole point is, 1 scoop of Haagen-Dazs, or at least 1 serving of Haagen-Dazs, is like 270 calories for obviously like negligible protein. And this comes out to, we were just talking about per scoop, is approximately 30 calories. And then the whole pint of protein is from, you have all the fat-free milk or whatever milk you use. You have a protein scoop in there. You have basically anything you want in there that it could be protein is basically.
Yeah, as long as you could turn it into ice cream, you could put any ingredient in there, which is awesome. And then what's the famous ice cream, or like the popular one if you go to a ShopRite or a local grocery store, and it's like protein ice cream essentially? Oh,
so you have Halo Top.
Okay, like Halo Top's the most famous one. But like, if you take Halo Top or any of the other ones,
Yasso.
Yasso, this tastes better. It actually has better macros. Like, there's more protein in it, and it tastes better. Like, it's very bizarre that the top of the market like commercial product for protein ice cream tastes worse than this. and all you have to do is spend a little bit upfront money, and then you save money in the long run if you're doing this every other night or so, and it tastes like a crap ton better.
Yeah, just if you guys do invest
Really
in one of
does.
these, just make sure that you get all the ingredients, and then you have to do it the night before or the 24 hours beforehand, because it has to freeze and then it has to maintain that frozen shape.
Yeah.
It does melt pretty quickly because I use the Whole Foods instant pudding mix, but the whole point is that it does melt quite fast because you are using all natural ingredients for the most part.
But if you have like the 24-hour setup, apart from that, like the waiting, it really is 3 to 4 minutes of actually doing things to get the ice cream result. So
Oh yeah. The actual prep takes no longer than 5 minutes if you already have everything, and then it's after that you usually just blend it once or twice, add in your mix-ins, your favorite mix-ins, and honestly, like I eat pretty damn clean, so I enjoy throwing in like these Oreos or these also these awesome Annie's graham crackers if we make the cinnamon ice cream base, so it tastes like s'mores.
I want to try that one. I haven't tried that yet or done anything cinnamon. But it is interesting because a lot of people say you can't have your favorite foods, and not only can, and we'll get into it whether it's this episode, other podcasts, but we talk about how you can eat like some percentage of your foods being the worst foods imaginable and still get exactly the result you want. But in this case, we're eating the foods that we enjoy, and it's not even bad ingredients into foods that typically would have maybe not the best ingredients added in. Like it's do it your own ice cream, but not with crap stuff added in. Whatever we want to add in, because we have the right eye for these things and we understand nutrition a little bit more than the average person, and how to kind of like all the little hacks and tips and tricks and stuff. It really does seem like a cheat code.
Oh, absolutely. Especially during dieting. I didn't think I was going to have that much ice cream. And to be fair, I used to have like Halo Top or maybe even a scoop of Haagen-Dazs at the end of the night. But it was just so costly. And I honestly just was...
Yeah, it was like $5 a pint or something like that.
Yeah, $5 a pint in terms of cost. And I would pay for it, obviously, for taste. But in terms of also calories, 270 calories is almost, in terms of lifting stuff too. It's like, it's almost 2 cups of rice or 2 servings of carbs. Yeah. And that's obviously huge for lifting, especially prior to my lifts. So I personally just didn't think the calorie cost ratio was good for me. So I think during this exploration of finding these ice creams, it helped out almost basically me and the entire family now that I'm doing this. My girlfriend's eating it now. And then now that I have a child that's 6 months old, a little bit older, that when we make stuff for him as he gets older, he has this context of, I can eat all these things, and he'll also eat it in moderation, and also that he enjoys it. And when he does eat an ice cream that's basically from the store, it's like he'll probably love it, but then also like probably eat a scoop and then just be like, I don't want this anymore.
Yeah, he's not gonna crave it as much either. Like a lot of people, or a lot of, well, let's take us for example, right? When we were growing up, we probably had a sweet tooth for everything because we didn't eat good in the first place.
Yeah.
So we're always craving sweets. But when you eat this way first and you have the right principles to begin with, the sweet food is going to taste ultra sweet. And some of it, like we talked about Oreos, right? It's like they nailed it where no matter how great and perfect you eat, most people could still eat like all 3 sleeves of Oreos.
Oh, still can.
Yeah, 100%. Now, like the thing with Yanni Antetokounmpo, like the basketball player, where apparently he ate Oreos, like a whole sleeve or 2 every single day. And then he was like, after like 3 or 4 years, and he has this Greek accent. I can't do a Greek accent, but after 3 or 4 years, I eventually realized like, I just got tired of Oreos. I ate them every day. He's like, but then a teammate told me that you could dunk them in milk. And he's like, and ever since that day, I've been on the Oreo grind again. I've been having them every day. So,
gee, that is actually incredible that these top athletes actually go through this thinking that the average person probably thinks that they eat the most perfect things, like because they have the resources to be able to afford the best nutritionists, dietitians, and then you look at the top athletes and you listen to them, and they're eating whole sleeves of Oreos. In this case, you have
talk about DK Metcalf. That's the craziest
one. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of guys who just eat like Sour Patch Kids. It's like Sour Patch Kids, pancakes, and Skittles.
Cup of coffee before their practice.
Cup of coffee. And to be fair, the whole point is that they're genetic freaks, and then also that these foods do give energy, immediate energy. So it's not like it's not
like unscientific in the sense of what it does for you. It's just that it's like so suboptimal in terms of like overall nutrition across the day and across the week.
Yeah, it's just imagine their performance level, and then what happens if they just optimized bit by bit more and more of their nutrition currently, and I guarantee you it would just propel even further.
Yeah.
Except for the fact of the nocebo effect, which is that if you take it away from them psychologically, they might think that you're taking away from the ritual, and that's a whole other thing with all these athletes, that they kind of have these rituals, whether it be in baseball, some guys put on the same socks on one side and the other.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't even tell which sock it goes
It's
on
like
what
they
side.
get one home run, one game, and it was like, oh, like I banged my girlfriend before this game. It's like I got to do it again before every game.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great excuse at that point. But
yeah, that's like Ronaldinho. He said that actually.
did he
He
actually?
was like, I have to have sex before every game, otherwise, like I won't score a goal. Like he said some shit like that.
Oh my god, man, that's a great excuse, especially as a pro athlete. But
Yeah, imagine like you meet someone and you're like, wait, like I know this sounds crazy, but we got to do this thing because otherwise, like I'm not gonna score. Like, do you want your freaking team Brazil to win? Like, do you want us to win?
Oh, I'm sure. And in Brazil, oh my god, yeah, they're probably freaking out. Especially seeing Ronaldinho on the street, I'm sure they'll freak out.
Then you could blame that girl, like she doesn't want to like sleep with you. You'd be like, that's why Brazil lost the freaking World Cup.
Hey, well, that'd be a terrible blame. So yeah, Ronaldinho misses like a PK. I don't think. Do you ever miss a PK?
I mean, everyone has probably, but like not rarely. You know.
Did he take it for Brazil?
I don't know. There were so many good players. I know he did free kicks and shit, but after Roberto Carlos though.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure there's so many other strikers, and then Neymar came on the scene shortly after, if not then.
Yeah, they played a little bit together.
Yeah, I just forgot. I just like kind of like the point where I kind of stopped. I dropped off of the scene of watching some soccer with my roommate, but I was just like, I just remember watching all those guys. I mean, Neymar was the flopper. Well, Messi. The whole point was MSN in the front, so it was Messi, Suarez, Neymar was always so fun to watch because they just complement each other so well. How long did they play for? Like 4 years?
Probably something like that. Yeah, they're trying to get it back in Inter Miami. Like there's rumors that Neymar will go there. It'll be Messi, Suarez, Neymar at Miami.
How old is Neymar now? Is he 30?
I think he's like 32 maybe now. He might be. I can look it up right now, but it's just crazy to think that he used to be like the young kid on the block. And it was all these other guys that were older, and now like he's technically one of the older guys compared to all these super young people that are very popular now. So like Mbappe's still really young, Haaland, Jude Bellingham, like all the top players for the most part are all like super young now.
Yeah, I can't even tell you who the younger players are. I don't even know how old is Haaland? 24, 25?
I think he's 21. He's yeah, it makes me feel really bad about myself that Haaland's 21. He's like the same age almost.
He just looks old. I think that's what it is.
He looks like he's 35. Like he's like a 35-year-old Viking on the outside. But yeah, he's 21. I mean, he also is like very composed. Like he has a good character for being that young and being on top of the world. But yeah, it's amazing. Like anytime you want to, for some reason, feel shitty about yourself, or if you don't want to feel shitty about yourself, don't look up the ages of the top soccer players that get paid $100 million a year to shoot balls and nets. Yeah, Neymar's 32 years old.
Wow. So basically, when I started watching, because my roommate would watch it back in college, he would have it on at like 8 a.m. because I think they play in other countries around the world, so it's obviously all off. So
was it England that he was watching, or he was watching?
Yeah, he was Man City fan then, and that's when Yaya Toure was huge on the scene. So that was like that time frame. But it was that, and then watching Neymar being the young kid. Now it's like Mbappe, Salah. I don't know. I don't know the kids. Who are the kids?
I don't know. Salah's not even a kid.
Yeah, Pulisic
in America, yeah, and like it's weird because didn't he start a while? Like that's the weird thing is like I took like a few years of like not watching that much other than my favorite team. I'm an Everton fan. You guys are gonna make fun of me if any of you watch soccer listening to this, but yeah, I mean I would say so. Jude Bellingham is this guy who's like really popular now. He's from England. He's gonna be in the final this weekend against Spain. England versus Spain is the Euro final, but it's him, Haaland. I mean. Off the top of my head, like there's just a crap ton of people I think on Real Madrid, Barcelona that are really young, and a few people in the Premier. I mean, it's gonna be the top leagues, but there are just like a lot of young people. Like I think Odegaard's pretty young. You know who that is on Arsenal? Odegaard.
I've been watching soccer recently.
But yeah, I mean now I don't enjoy watching it as much as I used to, just because now everyone's so like the level is so high that for one player to be like significantly better than another player and to do like all these magical moves. Like it almost like they don't do that anymore. So like remember the player like Ronaldinho for example, like he's doing all these crazy moves that no one would dare to do, and it might not even be the most efficient way to get around someone, but he just kind of plays like in this beautiful way. That's why it's like Joga Bonita or whatever. It was like to play beautiful, right? That was like the Brazilian saying, and it's like now like to get people to do that, it's much more difficult because I think how they're brought up, they're trained differently. So it's like okay, well if you study film and you watch Messi, he does the simplest shit that's the most efficient. Ronaldo, as he got older, he's done the most simplest shit that's the most efficient. So now there's not many players to look up to anymore. That's like, all right, I'm going to do 65 step overs over the ball before I go around the guy. So it just doesn't exist anymore. It's not like, it's just not as fun to watch for that reason, if that's one of the reasons why you watch soccer. Like I still love it and appreciate all the details because I played, but
yeah, so it's less of a spectacle. So it's more of that you appreciate. Basically, it's the same. I mean, it's the same for me in baseball. Basically, it's the skill gap is so high that everybody's so good. There's not these one-offs that people are astounding you. Obviously, they are the best. Obviously, if
Yeah.
you put them any of these all these European and all these best players coming into the U.S. right now, you can see there's a massive drop off. I'm pretty sure they don't even try, and they're beating these. And like,
Yeah.
on offense, they're just scoring goals, not even thinking about it.
Basically.
So obviously they're levels ahead. But
Yeah.
I guess you were saying in terms of like the skill gap with coming from the top leagues, and then in those top leagues, I could imagine if everybody's at that skill level, so like they're not doing the crazy moves. I don't know much about soccer. Benji was a soccer guy, but at least in baseball right now, and I don't even watch baseball now, but basically saying it's like imagine you have Ohtani right now, who is a pitcher and a home run hitter.
Japanese dude, right?
Yeah, and he does both sides, and he's obviously the highest paying baseball player right now. But he also does both, and also his home runs like it's nothing. He's
Imagine
on
if he was a
top
switch hitter also.
That would just be ridiculous. Switch pitcher, switch hitter.
Yeah, switch pitcher. Has
That
there ever
is-
been a switch pitcher in the history of the league?
Yeah. Oh,
Seriously?
Yeah. I don't know their names, but yeah, there absolutely has. Yeah.
Man, that could have been our epic like soundbite clip for this podcast. It's like, yeah, like you go through the 5 people, and it's like, I don't know who they are, but that's so cool, actually.
No, yeah, there's definitely it gets into tricky situations, especially when you have a switch pitcher and a switch hitter, because then eventually it's just like you switch gloves and then they switch sides. The whole point is that you want to always bat on the opposite hand.
Now, if someone's like they switch sides after you switch gloves, can you switch gloves real quick and just throw the ball on the other side?
No, you can't do that. There is a rule. I'm sure it's baseball does have a lot of little tiny rules like subsects of.
Yeah,
rules.
isn't there a rule book like a Bible and like the umps only know like a fourth of the rules and they're like, right? Isn't it something?
It's brutal. It's brutal. I mean, you can go days on end about it, but I think a few of the biggest ones were like the baselines. So you have to run within the baselines. Interference is all opinionated based off of the umpire there. Like obviously you have guidelines between like you have about a certain distance away from the base that you can be. But then after that, you have to try to make an effort to stay within that frame, even if the ball's coming at you. There's so much little rules. I'm sure soccer. It's same thing with the yellow card and the red cards. Like hopefully the referees kind of give grace in a certain amount, and then also are stern about how they set their frame.
Yeah, it's like subjective in the sense that every ref is gonna have like their own, like, all right, for example, like if you kick someone in the face, everyone agrees like that's a red card, right? And like just like straight up kick someone in the face, no reason at all. And then if it's like, okay, someone's on a fast break, like it's a they're advancing the ball into like the final third of the field, and they get like elbowed off the ball or something like that. Maybe that's a yellow card, and most people would agree with that. Probably not just a foul. And definitely not a red, probably yellow card. But then you have referees that within what exactly is a red when it's more debatable and exactly what's a yellow, like it'll be different across all referees. So like the biggest thing that fans appreciate and players too, I think, at least when I was a player, is that if a ref calls red cards consistently and yellow cards consistently, that's fine as long as everyone is in agreement or in accordance about what the red is according to this ref and what a yellow is. So like, and it's the same thing if a ref is even like good and bad. Like if he's consistently shit, at least people could be like, all right, it went both ways, whatever, we could have finished the chances that we had. But if he's consistently ruling one side and not the other, so like he's consistently good for one side and consistently shit for the other, then no one likes that at all. Yeah. You basically have to be consistently good or consistently shit for both sides.
I think it's just basically consistent. I mean, same thing growing up in baseball, honestly. You'd rather have an umpire who's, especially behind home plate, who's, like, if he's giving 2-3 inches outside and inside home plate, it's like, hopefully you're giving it for both sides.
You ever get into fights with any of the umps? Like isn't baseball like the story, like the craziest interactions with the refs or like the umps?
Yes and no. I think this is my take. When I was growing up, there was still a lot of parental discipline. So there was still some respect for the elders, where at least where I played, that not even my coach, the coaches around us. There was not many teams that allowed the kids to talk back to the umpire.
Was this like playing with all other Asian players? Or
no, I'm the only Asian player.
Oh, well, where did you play?
I'm saying whether it be here in Edison, whether it be travel and Florida.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying.
I was gonna say it would be funny if it was a difference. If it was like an all Asian team and everyone was like super respectful. It was like the white kids were like, "Fuck you, umpire."
No. I was like, it was between me and my best friend, another Chris, but. He like soon became more of a soccer star for our league. But my big take is at the time, our kids still respected overall the umpires. There was not a lot of swag going on. There was not a lot of talk back to the umpire at the time. And if there was, it must have been egregious. Now, when I see my friends coach or, they have kids and stuff now. So I'm not saying it's their kids, but I have seen kids on teams, especially between like ages 8 to like 14, who are, they, clearly a ball. They call it a strike,
Yeah.
and then they just start going off. And
go nuts.
the umpire's not going to eject the kid unless they really start like saying swear words. And then at that age, they usually don't in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
Usually behind with their friends, sure. But that has happened more times than not. I've only been to a few games, and imagine watching like your kids' friends play ball, and it's just like they're screaming at each other, they're throwing helmets, like there's not a lot of composure as much. Maybe it's the area that I'm in, but it's not the way I was raised. So when I was growing up, we would never, even if it was a bad call. It's funny, even if it was a bad call, obviously, my dad and I know we actually had a punishment system. Actually, every time I struck out. Every time I struck out, it would be like an extra couple minutes of playing more or practicing more. And to be fair, I enjoyed it.
I mean, that's good. Yeah. I mean, it's not like, okay, like you struck out, so like I'm gonna like whip you with a freaking stick or something. Like, you know what I mean?
He used to do that. I mean, he used to do that too. It's you don't have to call child services. He actually did used to beat me or whip me when I was younger, just because like sometimes it was so stupid that like things I would do.
But not for missing a ball though. That's what.
Not like missing one ball, but like it was like a really bad at bat. It was a really bad strikeout. It was just like, okay, I mean, beating probably wasn't the best, or like one like belt hit wasn't that bad, but like
this podcast instant torque turn.
No, I mean, it's just what it was. Right?
Yeah. Most people are gonna like. I mean, you are where you are now. So
yeah, and to be fair, it's like I think I'm an okay person, so it's not like was absolutely detrimental to me. I'm just saying there's definitely a lot more respect
100%.
for the umpires, and obviously I respect umpires because it's one of the hardest jobs, no matter what sport it is.
Yeah. Well, now what's gonna happen is a kid, shits on the umpire, curses at him, and his dad's probably doing like the same thing. Like his dad's probably like, you know what I mean? Like there's just less of what you got. Like I'd rather what you got than like the alternative.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you got to teach them life lessons on life basically, and everything translates into life. So in this case, yes, I got punished every time I struck out looking, especially if it was a bad one. Like obviously, it had to be clearly like it was a strike, or not. And it's funny because I think this was imagine growing up as a kid. It's like I think I started being very serious with baseball from 10 years old on, but after those years, I got into high school, and I probably had less combined total, just in high school. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was definitely less than a total of 20 strikeouts and over 420 at bats.
That's crazy.
Plate appearances. So think of it this way: out of 420 plate appearances, I also had over 100 walks combined. So I think the testament to that discipline was that I was also very good with looking at pitches overall. So good or bad, it was just, I think it came out. Basically, it taught me so much eye discipline in terms of hitting that I was able to scope out the umpire's feel of the plate, because I was a leadoff hitter too, so I would always scope out the umpire's plate. I would never almost swing at the first pitch when I was growing up, all the way up to like junior year of high school, senior high school, and
no matter what, like even if it was like right down the middle, you just planned on not swinging at the.
It was more of a tactical thing. Most of these guys in the high school level, even if they were all county, all regional, state, even if they were great, it's just like their amount of control wasn't to the point where I was like I couldn't hit the next pitch, right?
Gotcha.
At a college level, it's like, you probably do get that one or two pitches, and at the pro level, it's probably that one pitch. So it just definitely magnifies. But at that level, with the discipline of my father, was that I learned to look at the pitches for what they were, and I also read the umpires. So like, if I was leadoff hitter, I'm the one that's relaying the plate size for people, how much give they're giving on either end. So if I swung at the first pitch, I just screwed everybody else up. I'm not, I get a hit, awesome, great, whatever. But the whole point of the leadoff hitter and the second hitter is to kind of
set the tone kind of for the next at bat.
Yeah, get the gauge. You gotta get the gauge. So if I have
because then you don't know how that guy's gonna pitch either for the next guys.
Yeah, you take one fastball down the dick. It's like, yeah, sure, I hit it. But then it's like, what else has he got? He got curveball, changeup.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and depends on the level, depends on the pitcher. But I'm just saying, like, imagine in high school, going through all that, right? From my dad disciplining me when I was a kid, I used to give a belt and whip me once and be like on my butt, and then just be like, all right, come on, just do better. And then now it's like through high school, it's like I remember telling us, it was incredible, like 400 plate appearances, 100 walks, over 100 hits, and it's like, how the hell, like what the hell happened there?
So thank you, Dad.
Yeah, in his weird way.
Imagine it's gonna be like all the reviewers of this will be like Generation Fit. Coach Chris and Coach Benji, they endorse child abuse. Like, cancel it. It's like picking signs outside the house, like tomorrow.
It's funny, as I hope somebody locally listens to this podcast eventually, and they were gonna see what happened behind the scenes, because they used to think, they'd be like, oh, this kid was great because this guy played, did this and that.
He was genetically gifted.
Yeah, I was like genetically gifted, or he had it this way. He's privileged, and basically it was like, no, I probably spent every single day for 10 years straight of hitting 100 to 200 balls off a tee
Yeah.
or off a batting cage or somebody tossing to me. So
Yeah.
like, if I wasn't good, that would be a problem.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it would be unreasonable to suck, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of had the same experience with soccer in terms of, well, okay, I didn't have the same experience with soccer, but in terms of the mindset of like I'm gonna go, I just like didn't have anyone to force me to do it or like tell me to do it. I just chose after watching like the greats that like okay, like I should go to the field and shoot at least 100 balls a day when on the days I don't have practice or something like that. So I kind of embraced that philosophy as well.
Yeah. So I mean that's kind of how that goes. But
All right, so what is the topic we're going to be going over today? What topics do we got?
yeah, so the muscles that people want popping out to look like an action hero, right?
Okay, so like basically what muscles make you look aesthetic? And most people are gonna like guess like arms or something like that, right? But the idea is like what makes you look like a superhero or like a Greek god, kind of.
Yeah. And this is for the men, so this is the men's edition.
Yeah, imagine if it's like women are listening to this and they're like, "Damn, I gotta build like traps. I gotta build."
Oh god, please don't build your traps, ladies. If you're trying to be as feminine and pretty as possible, the traps is definitely not the objective take on it. You may have the 1 out of 1,000 guys that like it, but it's definitely not traps.
I remember I was watching Impractical Jokers, and they had to do one of the bits they were doing is the challenge was they were photographers, and there was like this lady like posing doing her thing, and like basically I think it was Sally had to be like killer clavicles, boss. Like she had to say that, and I don't know why, but for whatever reason like that always stuck with me, and every time like Allie's like working out or something, or just like standing there, I'll be like, killer clavicles, boss. She's like, what the fuck are you saying?
Yeah, anytime there's a broader neck or shoulders on a lady, that's
like Brock Lesnar, female edition.
Yeah. Like, personally, not my thing, but I think if you asked, I always say this, in a room with 100 men, 100 women randomly, all across ages and ethnicities, it's like, I guarantee you percentage-wise, it's less than 20% of the guys that would not prefer that. So if you do have it, like it's just like, look, it's just you.
Go ahead. Like if basically what Coach Chris is trying to say is if you can find true love with a female that has traps, go ahead and by all means do that.
Yeah, by all means, like have traps, do it because it's. I mean huge traps. Abnormally huge traps.
And think about it, like there is some functional like things as well. Like if you plan on having lots of kids, right? You gotta be able to support like picking up and putting down that baby. Like those traps are gonna be able to help you out a little bit.
But yes, but the topic is for men. So. In this case, I'll start off. It's got to be the shoulders. So shoulders got to be number one because it starts off by setting the frame of your eyes directly to the frame of the man. And we know from an evolutionary standpoint that we automatically size up the width of a man or anybody's shoulders when it's considered a threat. So right away, that's evolutionarily speaking to the volume of is this person going to hurt me or am I in danger of any sort? So it sets up also the taper. So the wider your shoulders are, it makes the illusion that your waist is very, very, very thin. And for most guys hold fat right here. So like the bigger your shoulders are, it just ends up 100%. Being a better taper. So number one's got to be shoulders.
Yeah, all the guys you see in the Marvel movies, everyone you see on the front cover of magazines, of course, they're probably taking shit or whatever. But the whole point is the people we find most attractive in society as men, they have this big this drastic V taper. They have wide shoulders, very broad, and it comes down to a narrower waist. And like you said, for guys who have, that like stomach pouch, like they store more fat in their stomach, that's most guys. The wider you can make your shoulders, it'll make your waist be alluded to being smaller, right? So it creates the illusion of a smaller waist just because the shoulders are wider. So if you're someone that you say, oh, I hate my love handles, but I also have to get so lean to lose them. Well, if you build your shoulders more, it's just going to feed into that V taper. And most people are going to think you actually have a narrower waist when it's really not as it relates to your bone structure. So it's pretty interesting. Like if you talk about that ratio for a second, it's not like you have to come out with a measuring tape and all these things, but there was a guy who in the early 1900s, do you know about this? The guy that measured the statues?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it might have been actually Eugene Sandow that actually did it. I can't remember, but it was essentially a dude in the early 1900s who went around to like all the different sculptures and statues and like measured the ratios and stuff, and they found like that's where the golden ratio comes from, like 0.70. So like he realized that like the ratio of shoulders to waist should be 0.70, and as like the ideal. So as it relates to men, it would be like the shoulders to waist, and then he was like tried to replicate that as well, and then we try to replicate that today through exercise. And the golden era bodybuilders in the 70s, like they actually like paid attention to those measurements because it wasn't just that measurement that guy found, it was like ratio of calves to biceps and like all these different things to build like a scientifically like measure based aesthetic physique. And that's like why all the 70s bodybuilders would be like, well, if your calves measure this and your biceps are that, you have to make it the equivalent measurement, all these things.
Yeah, to be like literally just looking at somebody in the most perfect aesthetics possible. I mean, at that stage, you're at the grand stage.
Yeah.
Like that's a whole different thing.
100%. But in terms of how it relates to you guys, if we just start off with muscle number one, building your shoulders, it's like how do we do that now? And we can get into kind of best practices or our favorite exercises for building the shoulders. Because specifically when you think about shoulders, there's three parts of it, right? Like you have the front, you have the side, and you have the back delt. So in very simple terms. And generally from a lot of pressing movements, your front delt is going to be developed. So at least me and my personal philosophy is that I just do all variants of side raises to build the side delts, because especially from the front, it makes you appear the widest from the front as it relates to your shoulders. So I'm a big fan of lateral raise variants such as, cable cuff raises. I do lying lateral raises as well. And, good old fashioned dumbbell raises, usually with my chest against something to prevent some momentum. And that's usually what I do for shoulders in the week, like a little rear delt stuff too. But as it relates to the most important part, the side delts, I just do 3 different lateral raise variants, each on different days of the week is how I build my shoulders essentially.
Yeah, I would say the whole point is to get mobility in your shoulders to be able to do most of your movements, especially a press overhead. And I say for the beginners, you definitely want to have or get used to pressing overhead properly with full range of motion. And that's just from a very functional standpoint.
Definitely, yeah.
But then also, if you're able to grab dumbbells, kettlebells, whatever it might be, in a full range of motion where you're bringing the dumbbells or the weight close to your shoulders, for those watching on camera, and then you're able to drive it straight up in a very straight line, basically, above your head and hold it and own that entire range of motion, I guarantee you, if you see somebody holding 50, even just 50 pounds to 70 pounds, they already have at least decent shoulders, right?
100%. Well, and also depend, like you said, like functionally you're pressing and you're actually getting like aligned with your ear or something like that, right? Or like behind your head almost. Like it's a big difference than how most people press, and it's like fully in front of their body. Because if you're pressing fully in front of your body, it's almost all front delt, honestly, right? Maybe a little upper chest also, but like all front delt. Whereas if you're pressing fully to the side, you're going to be activating your side delts a lot, and there's little technique changes you could add as well. And it really comes down to what your goals are and how your body responds, one, and then also like if you're reverse engineering from what your goal is and what your non-negotiables are. Like for example, at least right now in our stages of life, Chris is he values functionality a little bit more importantly than I value functionality as it relates to what exercises we might choose. So like if the goal for both of us as it relates to in the gym is to build an aesthetic physique, it's like we might choose slightly different exercises based on other life goals as well. So for example, I'm not as good as pressing overhead because I can't fully get into that position as good as someone like Chris can. So I sacrifice that a little more for me doing more lateral raise variants because I feel that works best for me to just look a certain way. So when you're choosing exercises, it really comes down to not just the goal of what you want to look like, but other goals that you have in life and other values that you have in life as well.
Yeah. So for your shoulders, right away, try to get full range of motion on pressing overhead if you're able to.
Yeah.
And once you get full range of motion with a solid weight over time, trust me, your shoulders are going to be developed already. And then you can kind of follow through with a lot more lateral raising over time, especially if you can't get there.
I would probably just say as a beginner, do an overhead press and a lateral raise.
Yeah, at least. And then in the intermediates, that's where you can start to decide if after you get to probably about 50 pounds overhead for reps, and you're like, okay, it's not really growing anymore, getting any more stronger, then you can start to play with a lot more lateral raise variations where you're able to bring out the shoulders out wider purposefully and do a lot more techniques based off of feel where your neck isn't coming in. And also, you're not just also doing a shit ton of reps where it's half repped. I'm not saying it's wrong. Length and partials are great. It's just more of that your reps should be standardized first, and then it should be also in line with your shoulders where your neck doesn't kick in. So
yeah, and I think in terms of training shoulders too, like a little tidbit on that is that a lot of people think like to have cap delts you need to be like taking steroids in order to have cap delts, which is not true. I mean it's will be easier because there's more androgen receptors there, but you could build great shoulders naturally. I mean, obviously, it's going to be like have more muscle there and be leaner. Most people that have great shoulders underneath, like I guarantee you in the next 5 pounds I lose, my shoulders will pop out a lot more for that reason alone, right? Like I've seen your shoulders during your cut go from like not even like a line there to like the most defined line there. So like it really comes down to body fat in addition to having muscle there. And I do think with shoulders in particular, especially if you're doing a lot of how I do more isolation movements, you could really hammer them, use a lot of intensity techniques, drop sets, and do a little bit more volume if it is a point that you struggle with. But don't just add more volume and add more intensity techniques if you don't first have good technique in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because a lot of people do all that other shit. Like they do all this crazy stuff to like try and build one muscle group. And it's like their form isn't even good in the first place. Like they get more out of 6 sets than what they do out of 20 sets because they're not doing it the right way.
Yeah. And just for context, good technique with it is basically finding a range of motion that you can go to where you start off at the bottom, bend your elbows a little bit. And then for most people, it's not directly out to their side, but a little bit in front of them. And when you raise, it's actually more of a U shape for most people. Some people are extreme and go into the Y, which is about 45 degrees. But most people will start anywhere between 15 and 45 degrees. And then for most people, you want to probably at least get to parallel. It's not the only way to do it. People also can do a full butterfly raise. I'm just saying is if you can standardize going to at least parallel with full control, coming down for 2 to 3 seconds with your raises, I guarantee you your shoulders are going to be burning as long as your neck isn't also 100%. Getting involved.
Yeah, find your angle and see how you recover. Like with your neck, you'll know right away, probably, if your neck is bothering you. We basically just gave like a mini masterclass on shoulders, which is cool because, I mean, I do think it is the most important part of the V-taper, absolutely. And it's the part most people struggle with. And they say, oh, I wish I had shoulders like that. Like they try to build their arms so much, and that's so disproportionate because they only focused on doing arms.
Yeah. Well, shoulders is definitely sets a standard because it literally sets the scene. Literally, that's the furthest points of contact on the person's body, which kind of leads up to the next one. And it's not number one or in the exact order. It just builds on the taper in order, which is the upper lats. So we call them the wings in our space. But you want to have the illusion from the shoulders coming downwards. Immediately next is the lats because they cover space from, you see the shoulders, you see somebody's back, or I guess if they're muscular, that they come down, and then you see the upper back. If they're not muscular, it just looks like a flat shape.
Basically,
like flat Stanley. So it's literally just a pencil, basically, if they're not in shape. But when you do see somebody that has big shoulders into a big upper lat, that you start to see kind of like the word is like a Dorito.
Yeah.
And it builds upon it.
It kind of like flows into your waist. So it's like it almost comes when people say like, oh, that person is such a good like V, like usually they're talking about their abdomen and like their abs into their lower abs, but really this funnels into the V, like it creates even more of a V essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, it's most people already don't even train their back correctly. So when we talk
some people don't even train their back, actually.
That's surprising. No way.
Yeah, some people like literally don't train their back, or they at least do so much more front part of their body, and then like you said, some people think they're training their back twice a week, and then they're not training their back at all. They're training their biceps or some shit.
Yeah, so back overall has a lot of context and nuances and best practices. But what I would say in this case to build this is you cannot fake a good pull-up, right?
Yeah, I agree. I changed my philosophy on this too.
Yeah, you cannot fake a good pull-up. And a lot of the influencers and a lot of people that I follow and grew up with, this is one that I took away that still pertains to this day because I've tried a bunch of different exercises with the back. There was a bajillion of them because you can go different ways, different angles, feel, not feel, pure weight. So here's the easiest way to go about it. If you see somebody do a pull-up or chin up that's able to go chest to bar for reps, full control, full stretch at the bottom, and fully own every part, big back. I don't even have to look at them. They have a big back.
100%, yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that of all, like what I like to do is I look at the top natural people because I just follow them on YouTube, Instagram, and stuff, and I see just different common denominators. It's like, oh, it's interesting. These guys are all saying like the same thing about this muscle group or whatever. And what I've noticed for so many of these people is that when it comes to back training, like all of these guys are doing pull-ups, most of them. I'm not saying like you can't get an amazing back doing no pull-ups because there's plenty of people that do that. I'm just saying that a lot of the top naturals swear by doing pull-ups, full range of motion, chest to bar, different, dealer's choice with the width of your hands, but, chest to bar, controlled eccentric on the way down, full stretch. And these guys all have huge backs. And it's just it's exercise that's so easy to load. I think the big warning with that exercise is that if you can't do a pull-up, to not force it with bad technique. You have two options, either to use an assisted pull-up machine or to do lat pull-downs to be able to, alongside your diet, probably getting leaner also to build up to be able to do proper pull-ups. Because like lat pull down is a great exercise. Also, it's stable, but it is different. Like no one could tell me like, oh, they're almost the same thing. Just one's a machine and one's your body weight. Like that's kind of bullshit in terms of like the difference between a lat pull down and a pull up.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going into too many nuances in that case because there are a lot.
Yeah, there's so many.
So in this case, practical usages here. If you're unable to do a pull-up, then yes, like Benji said, start off with assisted pull-ups where it's hard for about 10 reps.
Yeah.
And if you're unable to do that, or it's just you're unable to control the eccentric or the negative portion, where you're lowering yourself as far as you can, do a lat pull down. Just make sure that you are doing something that's hard in, we call it the vertical pulling motion, or where you're pulling from above your head down to your chest / clavicle area. Yeah. As you get better though, just know that if you're able to have good technique pulling from the top down in a vertical way, I guarantee you your upper back is going to build. It has to. Yeah. Because the biggest difference I have seen with myself, my clients, everybody around me, for the most part, once they're able to do full range of motion pull-ups, it is almost inevitable every single time that their back develops, and especially where the illusion comes in from the back. And it's not to say that you do feel it there all the time either.
Yeah.
Because right now, if I do pull-ups right now, weighted for about 6 to 10 reps, you're right. I don't like just feel this massive burn right in this little bubble area where the teres major, fancy words, fancy muscle name.
Yeah, but you're just using so much more weight.
Yeah, it's just that the whole point is that like I'm doing it full range of motion as best I can with full control. It's like my back is blown up.
Yeah.
And it feels great for the muscles, but you're not like, oh man, I was just gonna build this little piece right here in this bodybuilding way. But it just, trust me, same thing with shoulder press. Somebody presses 50 pounds, touching their shoulders, pressing over their head in a perfect straight line against their ear, big shoulders.
Yeah.
In this case, I'm telling you, if you're doing chest to bar, or at least weighted, at least right to your chin, about 25 pounds plus under you, you are pretty damn big when you're back.
Yeah, I think like if you're focusing on back, I would bias the lats more. If you don't have that much time and you're like, yeah, I want to look more aesthetic than I do just as big as possible, definitely prioritize the lats more. That's really up to you guys. But I think that if you are trying to build your lats and you don't have that much time, maybe you have to choose 2 exercises. I'd say definitely a pull-up. If you can't do a pull-up, a lat pull-down, and then combine that with some sort of rowing motion, whether it's fully horizontal or diagonal, that's coming close to the side of your body. I would say that would probably be the best 2 ways to combine those 2 exercises together to build the best lats.
Yeah. So the takeaways here is definitely have a pull-up and then one horizontal or basically a row that's starting in front of you and pulling and reaching behind you. Think about squeezing your elbows into your waist so you're able to squeeze the lat muscles. But the whole point is you got to build the lats.
100%. Yeah. All right. So next one is going to be upper chest specifically. Okay. Now chest overall, of course, everyone wants a big chest, but some people have big chests and they don't actually have aesthetic chests. So, a lot of people, I hate to like throw people under the bus that are famous, but I guess it's easiest to pick on the most famous people. Take any powerlifter, for example. I'm going to use specifically Larry Wheels as an example. And he has built his upper chest a lot more since then. But he's strong as shit, right? He could bench press so much weight. No hate on him. Like he's awesome. Like I look up to him in terms of like what he's been able to do. But, he does a flat bench press and was able to do it so much. And, he's not able to incline as much weight because that wasn't as important for like the big 3 lifts. So what happens naturally as a result, especially when you have a big powerlifting arch and you're doing all movements like that, is that your middle and especially like your lower chest, if you have that big arch, develops a lot and you kind of have like nothing in the upper, or at least proportionately. It's just so much more on the lower and nothing on the upper. So you look like it's just like muscly boobs kind of. It's like muscly bitch tits instead of like actually having like your upper chest shelf. So if you think about like the upper chest shelf, just think about Arnold Schwarzenegger, that if he does like that side pose or whatever, he has this just big armor of like just chest plate on him. So basically the question is, now that we know that we should be building our upper chest in proportion to our lower chest, or even maybe a little bit more so, how do we do that? So like, what are your favorite go-to exercises for building the upper chest? And then I'll give mine as well.
Yeah. So I'll go, mine personally for myself has been an extra high angle on the incline dumbbell press. The reason why this works for me is because when I set my shoulder blades down and back to just lock the shoulders in place to make sure I have a solid base for pressing, that I do have a bigger arch, like a powerlifting arch. It's just my natural setup. For those on camera, you can see it. If I just do that, I didn't move my lower back. It's just a really, really massive arch. So that by the time I do my arch and setup, I already lose about 15 to 30 degrees of range of motion. It goes back into almost as if it's going down closer to flat. So my biggest takeaway was a 60-degree angle, I would
It's
do my
very high,
brace. I would go down to like a 45
Yeah.
and actually be in the angle where my upper chest could fire the most. And look, I come from a strongman background, powerlifting background. So I used to bench with a flat all the time. I used to have the whole arch, the big wide base of hands, and then my elbows drawing close to my chest, close to my waist, and then driving up. And guess what? My lower chest was really big, and my outer chest was really big. My upper chest was lagging behind. My upper chest didn't grow basically till like 3-4 years ago, and that's because I really focused on controlling and doing a lot of exercises in a high incline. In this case, the dumbbell works the best for me, but I also like incline barbell.
Yeah.
And then in terms for my clients, same thing, but most of them have a slightly less arch.
Yeah, so maybe like 45 degrees with the arch. Anywhere between 30, probably for most people listening, it'll be in between 30 and 45 degree bench incline, depending on your arch. For most people.
For most people. And then if you do have a big arch, I recommend going up above like 55 to 60 like I do. It really just depends on the person, but it definitely has to be an incline. If you already have a nice chest from flat dumbbell pressing or flat pressing in general, that's great for you. Like that's you're not the normal person.
Yeah, some people just build muscle in the upper chest. Like Brock Lesnar probably just does whatever he wants, and he has a split between his upper and lower chest. That's how big it is. But most people are not going to have that.
Yeah, you pressing flat all the time on the average person I've worked with, hundreds of people, did not build an upper chest, and it didn't look correct. I obviously taught them how to, but realistically, you have to do an incline press to finally get that upper chest look where that slit comes right from that clavicle, and then you have like a shelf that you could just balance cool things here, like a drink or something like that.
Well, here's the funny part. If you could flat press like 315 pounds, maybe even for reps, but you rarely do incline, you're going to take an angle where the bar comes lower on your chest, and then you drive up, and maybe you could still do lots of weight, but you're still using your lower and middle chest, right? So like to build an upper chest, like you have to leave the ego at the door, because generally the weight is going to have to drop drastically. Like I do incline barbell press right now in this cycle of training, and 6 months into lifting, I started off at only weighing 130 pounds. 6 months into lifting, I could bench 225 with not great form, but I could bench 225 off my chest. I'm doing incline barbell right now at 165 for reps of 6 to 8. And it's the best upper chest pump I've ever gotten. And not just pump as a replacement for building muscle. It's the most muscle I've built in my upper chest also. So it's a huge difference, guys. Like a really big difference.
Yeah. And just in terms of the way you look, building that upper chest makes it seem like you have a plate of armor, exactly like Benji said earlier. So in terms of the look, now imagine the picture. Big shoulders into a big plate of armor chest, right? Basically a shelf, width of shoulders, shelf of a chest, and also the width of the lats.
Yes.
Automatically builds the really big V top of the taper.
100%. Yeah, it all kind of caves in and then filters down at the waist. And I think let's give takeaways real quick with the upper chest training. I'd just say if you're setting up, whether you're going to the gym 2 times a week or, 6 times a week, how I'd set up my chest training to develop more of the upper chest, especially being that was my weak point, is I'd probably do 2 exercises for the upper chest to every 1 exercise that's flat, or if you are doing decline pressing. And I would do probably for most people 2 compounds to 1 isolation, especially as beginners. So what that looks like is maybe, 2 exercises in the week or more exercises as compounds, like an incline barbell press, incline dumbbell press with a big stretch like you talked about. And then probably doing a fly motion as well that's more focused on coming to like thinking about bringing your biceps into your upper midline of your chest, like kind of towards your clavicle. Like that would probably be a good idea in terms of structuring your chest training to develop the upper chest.
Yeah, basically. So the last one that is also just very prominent in aesthetics, just looking as good as possible, is your waistline or the abs. Now you're probably thinking that you have to do a bunch of crunches, a bunch of P90X, summer or 6-pack shortcuts kind of stuff.
That's what I did, by the way. I'll tell them about that a little bit after you talk. Yeah.
But you don't have to do that at all. The first important thing is actually getting lean enough to where your body fat is allowing your midsection to be very thin, narrow, so that the abs can pop out. Okay? It's not the other way around. Can you be fatter with abs popping out? Sure. But at the end of the day, most men hold fat right around their waist. So trust me when I say, even if you have the biggest, strongest, most prominent abs, if you're holding fat around your waist, then your full V taper is a lot smaller. Hence why we always talk about the shoulder to waist ratio for aesthetics.
Yeah, so I would say, 2 things here. So first, just as it purely relates to abs, yes. Like if you get leaner obviously your abs are going to show. Everyone technically has abs one way or another. Some people, as the muscle itself is more developed, and some people it's not. But I'd say for a large percentage of people, if you just get lean enough, you're going to have a decent 6-pack or 4-pack or whatever your genetics allow. And there's the debate: oh, are abs built in the kitchen? Are they built in the gym? Some people say all in the kitchen, all in the gym. I'd say that probably 80% of them are built in the kitchen. 20% of it is built in the gym. And that's kind of for the genetic difference or how thick you actually want to make your abs. But if you already have a great 6-pack, let's say, and you are lean, I wouldn't try to develop your abs more and more and more, because chances are it'll probably get to a point where it's too thick and looks a little unaesthetic depending on how far you take it. I mean, and you see the people that train like obliques and shit too. And like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
For aesthetics.
Yeah.
For aesthetics, it's dumb.
So I guess the first big part of this is get lean first.
Yeah.
And then if you're the average person that don't have great genetics, like most people that I've ever worked with, then here are some exercises that I loved using for myself and for my clients to at least develop.
I'm probably used to having like my abs naturally developed from like all the shit I did with soccer. So that's probably why when I get lean, I already just have abs.
Yeah, you'll see as anybody gets leaner and leaner, you'll see basically how thick they are and also where you genetically hold fat. So what I mean by that is, some people can be 15% body fat and they have a great popping out 6-pack because they have a lot of muscle there and also genetics. And then you have guys like me who like definitely needs to get leaner to be able to see the bottom 2 or 4. I only have 6 that I can see. And I definitely do have to be in a leaner body fat percentage to get there. And then to build the muscles around there, right? It's just definitely technique first with some crunching movement. So my favorite one is definitely the reverse crunch because I already am upper ab dominant. So
and that's gonna come from compounds probably also with you, right?
Yeah. So like anybody who follows a strength training routine for a year or two will already start to see just a good base of core. Yes. Not that it's visible, but just the fact that you have some sort of structure there.
Yeah, the average body fat, you'll have more structure, especially in the upper abs.
Yeah. So when you go from there, you'll at least have the upper abs. So then my weak point, which I didn't realize till later, was my lower abs. And the best way to explain how to build the lower abs, especially the rectus abdominis or the muscles, the packs that you do see, is that you want to be bringing your bottom half and crunching with that, basically folding it together. Because it's your abs, those abs specifically start from right underneath the chest line, basically, and then it attaches deep into the waist, basically into your hip too. So you want to make sure that you do squeeze them together, but we always focus about crunching. And does it work the lower abs? Yes. But the same thing with the chest, like we talked about earlier, is that you want to be targeting the lower abs more so than the top abs. So a reverse crunch is basically that you're on a bench or somewhere flat, and it could be on an incline as well or decline, and you're able to put your hands behind you and hold a base there, and all you're doing is using your abs or using your spine is using your legs to move up, and then crunching, bring your knees closer to your chest, and then you will bring your hips a little bit off the floor or the bench that you're on. So it's kind of hard to explain on a mic, but in a visual, you will see that you want to think about internally tucking your pelvis and then trying to bring that pelvis towards your shoulders.
Yeah, well, at least at the bare minimum for like how we can explain it on here is that a lot of people swing when they're doing these exercises. They swing their hips and they don't get any contraction in their abs. So I guess what I'd have to add to that, or just like summarize more or less, is that to build a good 6-pack, if you're already training, you're hitting compounds, it's probably be lean enough and do, anywhere from 4 to 10 sets a week of a lower ab dominant movement, where probably a reverse crunch, where you're really focusing on squeezing those lower abs and not swinging like drastically. That's probably the best way to build a decent 6-pack without overthinking it too much, is what I would say.
Yeah, and for your obliques, definitely a little different. It's definitely not the one where you're grabbing a weight, leaning to your side, and tilting a bunch of times. Yes, is that what obliques do? Yes, they do. We call it lateral flexion. Great, cool. But in terms of the way the obliques function, they also prevent rotation, and they also rotate, okay? And those are the ones where you see the crazy lines, especially coming from the sides. So if you see someone that's very, very lean, what they'll have is a nice 6 to 8-pack in the front, and then they also have the lines coming into the waist, basically drawing like fingers going down into your waist.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful with obliques, right? Because there's like a big caveat. It depends. I think it really depends on what the person's starting genetics are like. Like, for example, like my structure, like obviously you've seen like the pictures as I'm getting leaner. Like my structure makes it so I already Well, one, probably from years of soccer, have more developed obliques in the first place, but I also store a lot more fat there. So basically, at least with my bone structure and how my hips work, I think that if I just build more of my obliques, it makes my waist look wider and blockier. Whereas for some people, if it's the opposite, it probably would help make that V more. But I just think from my experience, anyways, training people, maybe it's different with you, that I have it in terms of like pure aesthetic training, not like functional. I haven't really ever had anyone train obliques.
Yeah, you don't really. Basically, for aesthetics, it's just you first get lean,
Yeah.
see what it looks like. When you see what it looks like, then you can really hard press on building the packs.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to go about it. Yeah.
Yeah, building
That's
the
really for
packs.
all muscles too, but especially the abs, if you think
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, get lean, build the packs if you need to, and then if you have a very narrow waist that doesn't have any of the contortions, the lines coming across,
Yeah.
then you can add the obliques. But otherwise, if you already have blocky obliques just from regular lifting, or that's your standard aesthetic, then you don't have to.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. And I think that, so two things here. One, people are going to ask, what about the arms? What about the legs? Like in different capacities. So like one with the arms, like yes, like does having big arms look good? Absolutely. We're not saying don't train your arms in order to be aesthetic, but the big thing is most people go to the gym as beginners and they know, like, what do they know? They know bicep curls. So like you have all these 16-year-olds in the mirror curling every single day at the gym. And they have like these big arms and they wonder why they don't look the way they want to look. And it's because everything else that builds the V taper is not there, right? They have biceps, which does not build the V taper. Doesn't mean biceps don't look awesome. Big arms look awesome. Trust me, they do. But it's that's not going to build a V taper, right? So it's like, if you're trying to prioritize that, you don't need to do 25 sets of bicep curls every week. Like, it's just not the answer. That's the first thing I'd say. And then the second thing I'd say is with legs is that for pure aesthetics, you don't have to have tree trunk legs. You don't need to have an X frame, so to speak, but it just as you get leaner, having lean defined legs will look good, and to have them at least be proportionate to your upper body to some extent. Like, you don't want to be the guy who has toothpick legs and the most jacked upper body, because I think if you guys have stepped foot in the gym before, everyone knows the guy who's really jacked up top and has toothpicks like coming out of like baggy shorts. And it definitely doesn't look good. What do you think about that?
Oh, it's fun. It's just funny because personal experience. Being an athlete, my legs developed first, and it
Yeah.
actually I was always bottom heavy first, and then my upper body lagged behind for almost 10 years. So I was actually finding the opposite. But in the gym, yes, 99% of guys don't do legs, and if they do train legs, they definitely don't do it correctly. Whether it's training hard, choosing the right exercises, whatever it might be. I'm sure you see the guy who does the leg press, puts 35,000 plates on there, does an eighth of an inch of a rep, and then leaves all the plates there and runs away. And also straps.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, legs are so hard to build, man. It's all genetics. Like, I got good upper body genetics, but legs are hard to build, bro.
Yeah. So for the legs, I would say most people just need to do some sort of squat pattern. I don't care if it's a squat. I don't care if it's a Smith machine squat, a split squat, a leg press, a hack squat, but just a full range of motion squat.
Just fucking train them a little bit. Like, train them a little bit hard through a full range of motion. And like, basically that's it in terms of like looking aesthetic, I feel like.
Yeah. Realistically, if you just did split squats, variations of split squats and lunges, and that was it, you just pushed them hard, full range of motion, you are going to have really decent legs, honestly. And then
It's barely that many sets in the week.
yeah. It's barely any sets in the week. And then that's just pure aesthetics. And then you're like, okay, well, what about glutes and hamstring? It's like aesthetically not that important. So it's
Unless you're a baseball player, you need to have that big ass. Like, baseball player, football player, you know.
oh yeah, well, everything is all explosive going left to right. So you're also swinging a bat, which is literally twisting your hips 1,000
constantly.
times.
You build your obliques from that too.
One side.
One side, yeah.
One side.
So do you have to counterbalance that in your workouts, like if as a baseball player?
You're the smart. Basically, the guys who know that should do it, and they do. And then all
You
the
get hurt if they
average. Yeah, that's where you see like even Aaron Judge got strained oblique 2 years ago or a year ago.
Oh shit, that really does happen.
And he's at
Crazy.
top level. He's also 6'8" at 250 pounds of solid steel. So that's at the top level. So imagine
I'm guessing glutes too. Same thing. 'Cause
Yeah,
you're swiveling like your hip.
Yeah, same thing with soccer too. Same thing.
Yeah, it's same with soccer. Yeah.
You do the same thing one time over and over again to the one same side. Eventually, there will be imbalances. Hence, why I do have hip issues on one side. Because I used
Me
to
too. Yeah.
only internally rotate into the one side, and then one side would externally rotate to one side. So eventually, when I got older, I didn't start to feel the pain until I started lifting more heavy and more in powerlifting style. So. But bring it back full circle. You want to make sure that you do hit shoulders, upper lats, chest, and then abs, but make sure that you're just very lean.
Yes, exactly. And across the board, not just for abs, but once you pack on size, just for every other muscle, it's going to look that much better when you're actually lean, right? Like you could have, for the most aesthetic physique, your upper chest, your lats, your shoulders, and abs under a giant layer of fat. And then once you strip that off and you're let's say 10% body fat, everything looks remarkable. You know, on camera, you look like you're 20 pounds more of muscle, even in person. And people are starting to say, oh, dude, you look so jacked. What's going on? And you actually lost 20 pounds, right? It's the detail that comes out in these muscles and how they look proportionally to each other and how they pop out once you're actually lean that will give you that look.
If you got value from this podcast and want to keep getting value from us, subscribe. Follow us on our Instagram at handles coach_Chris Lee.
And at Benji_Tucker19.